There is a lie you were taught early, and it has quietly sabotaged every attempt you have ever made to rise. You were told that if you worked hard, stayed honest, and treated people well, recognition would eventually find you. That belief sounds noble, but in the real world it functions like a tranquilizer. It keeps intelligent men compliant, while more observant men move around them. Power does not look for virtue. Power looks for control. This is why the most influential individuals in any organization often appear unimpressive at first glance. They are not louder, kinder, or more competent than everyone else. They are simply more aware of how humans actually behave when status is involved. Machiavelli understood this long before psychology had a name for it. He saw that people protect their position before they protect truth, and they reward those who make their position feel safer. The moment you accept this, your relationship with ambition changes. You stop trying to impress and start trying to embed. Most men fail at rising because they confuse exposure with advancement. They think being seen is the same as being valued. They speak frequently, volunteer eagerly, and remain constantly available, hoping proximity will translate into importance. What actually happens is the opposite. Familiarity erodes curiosity. Predictability destroys leverage. Power does not look for virtue. Power looks for control. This is why the most influential individuals in any organization often appear unimpressive at first glance. They are not louder, kinder, or more competent than everyone else. They are simply more aware of how humans actually behave when status is involved. Machiavelli understood this long before psychology had a name for it. He saw that people protect their position before they protect truth, and they reward those who make their position feel safer. The moment you accept this, your relationship with ambition changes. You stop trying to impress and start trying to embed. Most men fail at rising because they confuse exposure with advancement. They think being seen is the same as being valued. They speak frequently, volunteer eagerly, and remain constantly available, hoping proximity will translate into importance. What actually happens is the opposite. Familiarity erodes curiosity. Predictability destroys leverage. Power remembers disruption, not presence. One of the least discussed realities of high status is emotional fatigue. Powerful people live inside pressure that never shuts off. Every interaction either increases that pressure or relieves it. The men who rise are not the ones with the best ideas, but the ones whose presence lowers cognitive strain. When you make decisions simpler, outcomes clearer, and problems feel contained, you become addictive. This is why raw intelligence alone rarely ascends. Intelligence without emotional utility creates friction. Power avoids friction instinctively. Another uncomfortable truth is that transparency is not respected at the top. It is evaluated, dissected, and often used against you. When you openly declare your goals, you force others to position themselves defensively. Ambition, when visible, invites obstruction. Ambition, when concealed, invites curiosity. Mystery is not deception. It is strategic silence. When you speak less about what you want, people begin to project their needs onto you. They assign you roles without being asked. They imagine you useful before you ever prove it. This is how influence begins, not through persuasion, but through controlled ambiguity. There is also a reason powerful people are deeply sensitive to ego threats. Their authority depends on perception more than fact. If you appear too capable too quickly, you trigger insecurity. If you appear incompetent, you become irrelevant. The optimal position is quiet competence framed as support. You make them look decisive. You make them look informed. You make them look in control.
In return, they grant you proximity. This is not flattery, it is structural reinforcement. Machiavelli observed that rulers do not fear incompetence nearly as much as they fear displacement. When you understand this, you stop competing directly and start operating laterally. You become the man behind the decision, rather than the man arguing for it. Another truth few are willing to confront is that power bonds through shared opposition. Agreement is forgettable. Mutual disdain is unforgettable. When you identify what someone resents, fears, or wants removed from their environment, you gain instant psychological access. You are no longer neutral. You are aligned. However, this alignment must feel principled rather than petty. Power respects enemies framed as obstacles to progress, not personal grudges. When you validate someone's frustrations intelligently, you validate their narrative of being misunderstood and exceptional. At that moment, you are no longer an outsider. You are a witness. One of the most powerful positions you can occupy is the bearer of inconvenient truth, delivered without emotional charge. Powerful people are surrounded by affirmation. They are starving for accurate signals. If you can reveal risks without panic, flaws without accusation, and solutions without ego, you become indispensable. This requires restraint most men lack. Emotional discipline is power's currency. The man who stays steady while others react gains authority without asking for it. When chaos enters the room and you remain composed, your value rises silently. Stability reads as leadership, even without title. Another critical insight is that over-reliability reduces perceived worth. When you always say yes, you remove the need for respect. Boundaries create contrast. Selective refusal communicates autonomy. Autonomy commands attention. Power does not elevate those who submit easily. It elevates those who cannot be taken for granted. Machiavelli would also warn you about the danger of moral exhibitionism. Announcing your principles invites scrutiny. Living them quietly creates unpredictability. Power prefers men whose values are felt through consistency rather than explained through speech. The highest form of influence is shaping choices without appearing to constrain them. When you present options carefully framed toward a specific outcome, you allow others to feel sovereign while you remain architect. This is how real decisions are made, not through commands, but through controlled framing. Control the context, and you control the conclusion. Perhaps the most important realization is this: power does not respect hunger, it senses it. Need leaks through posture, timing, and tone long before words reveal it. The man who does not require approval speaks differently, moves differently, and negotiates differently. When you are willing to walk away, leverage enters the room with you. This is why radical autonomy is not optional. Without it, every tactic becomes manipulation driven by fear. With it, strategy becomes calm, precise, and sustainable. You are no longer trying to be chosen. You are choosing where to engage. Once you internalize these truths, something irreversible happens. You stop explaining yourself. You stop rushing. You stop seeking validation from rooms that have not earned your presence. And paradoxically, those rooms begin opening. Machiavelli was not teaching cruelty. He was teaching clarity. He stripped away comforting illusions and replaced them with observation. He understood that power is not evil, but it is honest about human nature in a way most people refuse to be. You can reject this knowledge and remain comfortable, or you can accept it and become effective. The difference between those two paths determines whether you spend your life reacting to forces you do not understand or shaping outcomes others assumed were inevitable. Once you learn how power actually selects its allies, you stop waiting to be noticed. You are already in the room. You just haven't started playing yet.